So hello guys, right now we are gonna practice English with pen between my teeth. It's the day 8th I think practicing English and I'm very satisfied that I'm continuing this. I hope if some of you guys, someone watching this, join me, we can practice together. We can practice online and offline if we are willing to get along or get together. So let's begin without any ado. I'm gonna keep this pen within between my teeth and just begin. Right now I'm selecting or I'm using this textbook which I mentioned before in the previous video. So the topic that I'm reading right now is the search for Indianness in literature. Let's begin. According to K.M. George, the basic problem with the term Indian literature is that it is used both in singular and plural form. And plural. That is to say that we accept that we have many languages and though they do produce one Indian literature. It is possible to read the literature of each individual language in terms of its own history and development. We don't have a common Indian language, but we have what we could call Indian literature. The Hindus as language, but we have what we could call Indian literature. He used as analogy to understand this. The case of a traditional brass lamp with many wicks. He says that if we have more wicks, the brighter the light. Okay, if we have more wicks, the brighter the light. As he goes to say, the lamp is the same, the oil is the same, but it is the wicks that determine the brightness of the light. The lights from various wicks merge imperceptibly and produce a brightness which is the totality of many lights. Thus many wicks produce one light. India's many languages produce one literature. In other words, various Indian literatures share the same source, and even if individually they are discrete, they constitute Indian literature in their totality. As K.M. George says, Indian literature is the sum total of literatures produced in the Indian languages, modern and classical. One of our most well-known comparatist scholars, Shishir Kumar Das, who tried to develop the concept of Indian literature, argued that India is a space undisturbed by changes in geographical factors from time to time, affected by political expediency. In other words, India was a vision less territorial and more spiritual, and has existed in some form or the other throughout the pre-colonial history of India. This concept of Bharatavarsha gained new significations during the national movement. However, Das argues that Indian literature is in one though written in many languages, but that is, it is in fact made up of many unique languages, literatures, and looks community. This is not to say that he doesn't see commonality among the various literatures. He argues against both homogenization of Indian literature as well as against the vision of heterogeneity that erases the commonalities in cultures. Historical and geographical factors have made this literature interact with each other, and their separate histories have certain points of convergences, thematic, generic, ideological. Thus, we should be able to arrive at the idea of Indian literature by establishing the idea of India by studying our politics, economics, or social life, which are factors that are seldom confined to a particular language or region, and an instrument of exploration which transcends the boundaries of particular language or region. In other words, as Sujit Mukherjee says, the literary history of India should account for our literary past. As he complains, literature in India is as old as a sculpture or painting or music, but has not received historical attention in the way that these other arts have. Hence, we must look to discover the common literary paths Indian languages have in order to be able to establish the contours of contemporary Indian literature. So that's all for today, guys. Let's conclude.